combat capabilities of modern armies depend on a careful balance of many types of weapons: tanks, infantry, artillery, and attack helicopters. This video ordnance program examines the U.S. Army's 24th Infantry Division, a battle-tested example of the modern heavy maneuver division. The basic combat formation of modern land armies is the division. Divisions contain all of the elements needed to wage land combat, including infantry, armor, artillery, and other supporting arms. Divisions are substantial in size, from 10,000 to 20,000 troops, nearly 500 armored vehicles, and 2,000 other vehicles. The divisions of today's U.S. Army can be categorized into two groups: the heavy maneuver division, such as armor and mechanized infantry divisions, and the light divisions, including light infantry, airborne, and air assault divisions. The heavy maneuver divisions are the largest and most powerful divisions on today's battlefield, combining a potent mixture of tanks, infantry, artillery, attack helicopters, and logistic support. Two types of heavy maneuver divisions exist: armor divisions and mechanized infantry divisions. The names of these divisions might suggest that they are substantially different in composition and equipment. But in fact, armor and mechanized infantry divisions today are very similar to one another.
You'll find that all the heavy divisions, be they infantry or armor, pretty much are a mirror of each other, except for one difference of one battalion, one armor battalion. We'll have a mix of Bradley fighting vehicle infantry battalions and M1 tank battalions. That mix gives us a good balance for firepower, for movement, and for communications, command and control. With that, we'll have self-propelled artillery to back them up. A 155 millimeter plus a battery of MLRS, and the multiple launch rocket system that was so effective in Southwest Asia. There's a battery in each division. We also have an aviation brigade that includes one battalion of Apache helicopters, day-night, long-range, precision weapons, and a battalion of general support aviation, Blackhawks and some Hueys. And we also include with that some of the small observation helicopters that are used to designate artillery, precision artillery fires, the OH-58 Delta.
The composition of mechanized infantry and armor divisions is due to the evolution of land tactics since World War I. In the First World War, before the invention of the tank, most armies were based around infantry divisions. During the war, infantry divisions alone proved lacking when faced with new innovations in tactics and technology, especially new machine guns and artillery. Tanks were a technological solution to part of the problem. But a greater problem remained. How should modern combat arms, the tank, the infantry, the artillery, be organized to best perform on the battlefield? World War II saw considerable experimentation with new tactics, including units based mainly around tanks. By the end of the war, a consensus began to emerge called combined arms. The divisions which had proven most successful were a careful blend of infantry, armor, and artillery. Each had their strengths and weaknesses, but the strengths of one often overcame the weakness of the other. So was born the modern heavy maneuver division. The importance of the maneuver division today does not mean that other forms of combat have been ignored or abandoned. Take the case of infantry. Mechanized infantry is a heavy maneuver version of infantry. But more traditional forms of infantry still exist in the form of light infantry, airborne, and air assault divisions. Heavy maneuver divisions are well suited to high-intensity conflicts, such as in Europe or in the deserts of the Mideast, as was so clearly demonstrated during Operation Desert Storm. But light infantry has proven essential in low-intensity conflicts and guerrilla wars, unsuitable for heavy maneuver divisions, such as Korea, Vietnam, Grenada, and Panama.
When you say mech infantry versus light infantry, you will have more guys on the ground in a light infantry unit than you will in a mech infantry unit when you talk about dismounts. And there is terrain where you've got to send the light infantry in, and there are situations where the light infantry can go in, where the maneuverability is not there with the tracked vehicles. You just can't do it. Swamps, the bogged down areas, you can't do it. When you talk about combat in the cities, can we do that in the mech infantry? Yes, we can do that. We can do it very well. The light infantry can do it, and they can do it just as well, in some cases better, because of the number of people they can put on the ground. When you talk about restricted terrain, the mountains, in some cases the jungles, the swamps, the marshy areas, these guys can't go there. But the light infantry can get in there, and there are situations where we've got to put those people in. With our Army configured as it is today, we're prepared for any contingency. And there's a role for the light forces, there's a role for the airborne forces, there's a role for the mech forces.
The maneuver divisions are so named for their tactical mobility. The heavy maneuver divisions substitute motor power for human endurance.
When I was in a regular infantry unit in Vietnam and so on, I carried a map and would routinely plan on moving 1 to 2 kilometers per hour. In a mechanized or armored division, you carry a map sheet, and let me emphasize the plural of that, and you routinely plan to move 25 to 30 kilometers an hour, routinely. Routinely. And that's day, night, all weather, any conditions, for long periods of time. Whereas when you're carrying a rucksack, you're going 2.5 kilometers an hour max. And after about 3 or 4 days, if you don't have a chance to stop and rest and clean up and get some hot food, you're just about pushing the limit.
An Army division is a complex organization built around many smaller combat formations. The smallest unit is a squad. Several squads make up a platoon. A tank platoon, for example, has 4 tanks. Several platoons form a company. Several companies form the basic maneuver element called a battalion. A tank battalion has over 55 tanks. Several battalions together form a brigade. A division is made up of several brigades. In this program, we will examine 4 types of combat units in a division and see what their roles are in the broader framework of modern land combat. One of the most critical questions in the evolution of modern maneuver tactics has been the relationship of infantry and tanks. Some theorists in World War II thought that the tank would dominate the battlefield by itself. But it soon became apparent that in many situations, tanks without infantry would be vulnerable.
You got to realize that missions will dictate how you use your forces. We have sometimes what we call armored country, tank country, and then we have infantry country. And it can be in the desert or it can be here in the woods of Fort Stewart. Tanks need maneuver space to maximize that firepower, that speed, that shock effect. And as long as you got that maneuver space and you can run them hard and you can fire on the move and destroy things and do it rapidly, you don't have a problem. But you're going to hit terrain and you're going to hit enemy, you're going to hit obstacles that the tanks can't maneuver through or get through. There will be terrain. There will be restricted terrain, similar to here at Fort Stewart, that tanks got to line up like ducks in a row and get through there. Well, the enemy can put a tank killer team on the other end of this road, knock out the first tank and stop the entire convoy. Well, that guy has to be eliminated. Tankers will not dismount to go do that. They've got 4-man crews. We can put our mech infantry on the ground, They can clear these obstacles. They can clear the resistance in the wood lines. They can clear the resistance in the passes. It's a combined arms team. And the tanks, the Bradleys will fight where the tanks fight. And when the tanks get bogged down, we've got to go in and clear them out and allow the tanks to continue their maneuver.
Heavy maneuver divisions, such as the 24th Infantry Division, use mechanized infantry battalions. The principal difference between a mechanized infantry battalion and a traditional infantry battalion is the use of infantry fighting vehicles in the mechanized battalions.
Well, I would say specifically the mechanized designation tells you that they primarily move and shoot with armored vehicles, infantry fighting vehicles and tanks. And that differentiates from, say, a pure infantry division.
Infantry vehicles evolved along with mechanized infantry tactics. The U.S. Army infantry vehicle for World War II was the M3 half-track. Such a vehicle had a limited amount of armored protection, and its rear tracks gave it better mobility in rough terrain than an Army truck. In the 1950s and 60s, infantry vehicles evolved into fully tracked armored personnel carriers, such as the M113. These vehicles were completely armored, though not as thickly armored as a tank. In the 1980s, the Bradley infantry fighting vehicle emerged. The main advantage of the Bradley over earlier vehicles is its tremendous firepower, a 25mm autocannon and a pair of tow-guided anti-tank missiles on the turret.
The 113 APC, Armored Personnel Carrier, was literally a carrier. It carried the infantry to the fight. At that point, they dismounted, got out, and fought as traditional infantrymen have done for centuries. The Bradley fighting vehicle gives you a whole new aspect, both in cross-country mobility, firepower, both range, lethality, and the fact it's a stabilized gun system. Day, night, cross-country, it can shoot on the move accurately. And then it gives you the enhanced communications of a vehicle-mounted radio, plus the protection. Right now, with the Bradley, it will take up to 23mm and survive well. For those reasons, the Bradley gives you those advantages that give you a great, what I call a great step up.
Infantry vehicles expand the tactical options of the infantry commander. In some situations, the infantry can remain inside the armored protection of the Bradley. But if the circumstances demand it, the infantry can dismount from the Bradley and conduct the mission on foot using traditional infantry tactics. Each Bradley infantry fighting vehicle carries 6 infantrymen in the rear compartment.
Let's go! Come on, move it! Right, drive down! Let's go down!
Dismounting the soldiers is going to be a mission requirement. Okay, we're going to dismount our soldiers when we have to clear trench lines. We're going to dismount our soldiers when we have to clear choke points or maneuver through certain danger areas. For any on-the-ground hand-to-hand conflicts, naturally you're going to have to dismount the soldiers. They're going to be the ones that do the close-in fighting, and they're going to be the ones that secure the enemy prisoners of war.
Tanks provide the shock force of modern land armies. They overwhelm an enemy with firepower and mobility, and they protect themselves with thick shields of armor. The U.S. Army's current main battle tank is the M1A1 Abrams. The M1A1 is a modernized version of the M1 Abrams, going from a 105mm main gun to a 120mm gun. The latest versions also incorporate important improvements, including added armor protection. As imposing as such a tank is, there is still the need for close cooperation between the infantry and the tanks on today's battlefield. One of the threats that most worries tankers is the enemy infantrymen armed with small portable anti-tank rockets and missiles. When enemy infantry is present, tankers need friendly infantry.
Tanks have blind sides. Tanks always will have blind sides to them. You can't defend 360 degrees from a tank. You can and also passively at night you can defend from a tank with thermal sights and then with guys up in the hatches. But you don't really have the crew members to run patrols. The infantrymen give you the opportunity to defend aggressively, which is kind of a contradiction in terms, but what it means is that you can put guys on the ground patrolling, making sure they're not putting mines and booby traps out, making sure they're not sneaking up to do your tanks in from close quarters with infantry-mounted weapons. We always moved with 2 infantry companies on our flanks, and at night when we would pull into a defensive position or when we would refuel, they would always be to the flanks where we're least secure and put guys out on the ground patrolling.
Tanks and infantry can be used side by side, but normally combined arms tactics mean using tank units and infantry units. For example, a company of mechanized infantry and a company of tanks operating on the same mission. When used in such a fashion, the situation will dictate the tactics. Because the tank is more thickly armored than the Bradley, the tanks often lead the attack.
Well, obviously the tank has great firepower and mobility. So from a shock effect, depending on the situation, you would want to, if the enemy situation is unknown, but likely that they have armor forces, probably want to lead with tanks and follow with mech infantry then to develop and to exploit the success of the tanks through the enemy lines. If, on the other hand, the enemy is dug in bunkered, revetted positions, and we know that we will have to fight through that, we need the infantry then to be able to dismount and to do that, to fight the enemy soldiers out of their positions, and also the firepower the Bradley carries, the machine guns, the 25mm, provides great capability to do that. So we analyze the mission and determine then what best formation and what best mix at the battalion task force level we need to accomplish it. That's pretty much the way it will work at a battalion level. Mission dependent, terrain dependent to a great extent, and then put together the force to provide the flexibility and the firepower to do what needs to be done.
The Maneuver Division has an impressive amount of firepower at its disposal. Besides the direct fire provided by the tank guns and Bradleys, indirect fire from artillery battalions and the firepower of attack helicopters can further contribute to the combined arms battle. Artillery has long been called the king of battle. Artillery can pound enemy positions before an attack, gravely weakening the enemy. In maneuver formations, such as the 24th Infantry Division, the Field Artillery Brigade concentrates this firepower.
Our role is to provide indirect fire support for the maneuver forces. So that means we need to be up with them so that we can fire at targets that that may influence their scheme of maneuver. We need to, basically though, we need to destroy the other enemy's artillery, and we need to be pretty close to the, because of the range of our systems, we don't want to be too far back from maneuver forces.
The divisional artillery weapons in maneuver formations are mounted on tracked vehicles to ensure that the artillery can move with the tanks and mechanized infantry. The backbone of the division's artillery is the M109 self-propelled 155mm howitzer. There are 2 battalions of these in the division, totaling 48 howitzers. These battalions can each deliver a ton of projectiles and high explosives in a single salvo. Adding to the punch of the howitzers is a battalion of MLRS artillery rocket launchers. A single one of its 12 rockets can devastate an area the size of a football field. Helicopters have added a new dimension to the maneuver division. The division's aviation brigade performs a wide variety of roles, using several types of helicopters. The UH-60 Black Hawk is the basic troop carrier. The CH-47 Chinook provides heavy lift capability and can even lift vehicles and light artillery. The AH-64 Apache serves with the division's attack helicopter battalion.
Army aviation is an integral part of every single one of our Army divisions. It performs with some 90 assigned helicopters a variety of missions, all the way from general support, which can be anything from carrying critical items of supply to moving personnel about the battlefield, to command and control, to courier type missions, to being out in front, if you will, of the division forces with cavalry, air cavalry, to attack helicopters capable of going and extending the reach of the division commander out in front of his forces. So a variety of missions with a variety of aircraft.
For firepower support, nothing matches the AH-64 Apache. A maneuver division, such as the 24th Infantry, has a single Apache attack helicopter battalion with a total of 18 of these helicopters. The Apache can provide the ground forces with 3 main types of firepower. Its 30mm cannon can destroy lightly armored vehicles. Its 2.75-inch rocket pods give it high explosive firepower, much like an airborne artillery platform. Its most lethal weapon is the Hellfire anti-tank missile. The Hellfire is laser-guided. It has a range in excess of 5 miles and can destroy any tank in existence. The Apaches can serve as the division commander's reaction force. Because of their great speed compared to ground vehicles, the Apaches can race to nearly any trouble spot and provide concentrated pinpoint firepower.
If it's within artillery range, I think the commanding general would use artillery and his ground forces to take care of it. When it's out on the fringes of that capability, then he would use attack helicopters. Now, when you think about the firepower that you get from both artillery, ground forces, and the attack helicopter, it's just a dynamite combination that if you can go out beyond the artillery and start blunting his nose with attack helicopters, by the time he gets to your ground forces, he's attrited to the point where he's not a combat force anymore. So that's the idea.
There is no better way to demonstrate the combat effectiveness of combined arms than to see how they perform in combat. The 24th Infantry Division spearheaded the attack of the 18th Corps during Operation Desert Storm. One of the division's toughest battles took place after President Bush's ceasefire. Iraqi Republican Guard units violated the ceasefire and tried to break out of the encirclement near the Ramallah oil fields.
We had overrun and routed about 5 more divisions who had fled and run towards Basra. We did security operations for about 2 more days, and on the morning of 2 March, the Hammurabi Division attempted to break out of the Basra area, engaged our security elements in direct fire, and whereupon we sealed them into a pocket.
The Iraqi Hammurabi Division intended to break out of the Ramallah pocket across a causeway leading back into central Iraq. They substantially outnumbered the task force of Lieutenant Colonel Ware standing in their way.
I request permission to return fire because my Charlie company was in danger, and he would have been the guy that would have been really, if you want to say, hit hardest because he was closest to the southern edge of the Ramallah oil fields. And we got word back from brigade that we could return fire. Just as that word came back, then Sager started going at Charlie company. The tanks had turned on him and tank fire reports came in, reports of tank fire. And there were explosions on the ground down in my Echo company and around Charlie company. I could see them from my position. We had artillery seal off the southern end. MLRS and the 141 did some firing down there too. And up in the north, we had the Apache helicopter seal off the northern end where these guys were getting across the bypass in the causeway that we didn't know was there.
We rolled into the battle position. Alpha Company was already engaging targets. They were almost out of weapons and ordnance. So we relieved them on station. They broke for fuel. We occupied the battle position and continued the battle, so there was no delay in the firepower that was being focused on those targets in the Ramallah oil field. Bravo Company stayed there on line. We were in the battle position for no more than 25 minutes. Every aircraft I had fired almost all of its weapons. We came back with only a couple Hellfires, some 30 millimeter, and very few rockets. There was plenty of targets to hit.
With the Iraqis tied down by the infantry and the causeway sealed off by artillery and Apaches, Colonel Lemoyne ordered one of his tank battalions to counterattack.
The brigade commander came forward and they gave me the execute mission, and we attacked into the oil field up 2 axes and destroyed large amounts of Iraqi armor and supporting type vehicles, combat support, combat service support. By about 1,500 hours, about 4 hours later, the oil field was secure. So it was, in my opinion, a textbook operation, an airland battle.
By the end of the Battle of the Ramallah oil field, the Iraqis had lost 185 armored vehicles and about 500 trucks and support vehicles. As was so clearly demonstrated by the 24th Infantry Division in the Gulf War, the power of modern armies depends on a combination of technology, training, tactics, and organization. Technology alone does not win wars. Well-organized combat units, rigorously trained and skillfully led, are the heart of today's armor forces.